Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Mr. Gable. have my work hat on, my bad hair. It's one of those work from home kind of days, record from your car kind of days. So today we need to do a quick lesson over logical fallacies because logical fallacies are something that we often fall into without even knowing it. We just kind of do it. What a fallacy is, and I'm actually going to be going through the book here. I'm using the book on page 528 and through about 530. But a logical fallacy is a flaw in reasoning. Okay, that's whenever you have your logic, your logos going, and you're doing all that, but at the same time, you find a flaw in it, and it leads you to make wrong decisions or wrong arguments. And these are things that we absolutely must avoid. They will ruin your paper. They will kill your score on whatever it is. And they're something that I have a personal disdain for. I hate logical fallacies. So I'm going to run through some of them real quick, the ones in the book. There are some others as well. I've put up videos and different things so you can see a lot of different logical fallacies, okay? So the first one that the book covers is called begging the question. And I'm just going to read to you what it says. This fallacy assumes that a statement is true when it actually requires proof. And students do this a lot in research papers or argument-based papers. This is where you just state something, but then you don't follow it up. For example, it may be a book that if you're writing a research paper over an author or a text, and you're like, this book defines is the quintessential definition of this generation. Okay, that's well and good. Where did you find that? Where's your evidence? Prove it a little bit. You can't just make a blanket claim. For example, if you were doing an argumentative paper, and you were arguing about public access to lands during the quarantine, and you say, we are free and we have a right to public lands. Okay, provide some evidence of that. Show me. Maybe you're taking the opposite view. We need a mandatory lockdown during the quarantine. Okay, show me some evidence of that. And otherwise, you're begging the question, and that's a logical fallacy. So you need to avoid that. Okay. Next is argument from analogy. An analogy explains something unfamiliar by comparing it to something familiar. But what if the analogy just doesn't fit or work? Analogies can be very, very helpful, but you have to have an analogy that actually fits what you're talking about. The example that I've always used on this is if I take over a high school football team. Okay, I used to work with high school football teams. So if I take over a high school football team, I am the new head coach, and I come in the first day of 2-a-days, and I say, all right, guys, the 1992 Dallas Cowboys won the Super Bowl because of precision play calling, precision execution, excellence in their rotation and aggression, and we're going to use those same principles to win district. Well, there's a few problems there, right? That's not a good analogy. It's like taking over a soccer team and saying, all right, we're going to play like Barcelona at the high school level. It's just not going to work. And the reason for that is that high schools have different rules, different restrictions. You're only allowed to practice so many hours a week. You're only allowed to have the players that go to your school. You can't recruit or hire. If somebody messes up, you can't fire them. Okay? You can't go out and hire somebody else to replace them. There is no free agency. There are also amateur athletes that are there while going to school and working and doing a bunch of other things. This is not their job. They are not grown men. So you can't even talk to them the same way, which, of course, why would you want to? So the point of this is comparing professional sports to amateur sports is a wrong analogy, okay? And it creates a fallacy because you can't just jump into that and all of a sudden just say, hey, this is what we're going to do. No, you might try to take the principle, the idea of intensity or the idea of execution, but you can't just say this is what we're going to do just like this, because it doesn't work. Okay. Next is called the argument or attack ad hominem. Now, that is Latin for to the man, but basically it's a personal attack. This fallacy tries to divert attention from the facts of an argument by attacking the motives or character of the person making the argument. So, we might say something about, oh, politicians do this all the time, by the way, the attack ad hominem. Oh, this person messed up in 1963. They wrote a very derogatory creative writing assignment, and now we have to completely just ignore everything they say and have said for the last 30 years because of this one thing. Or it could be, oh, this person got a DWI in 1981, and we can't have that type of person representing us in Congress or something like that. Like people don't grow up, or the people don't make mistakes in their life, or people don't change. This is attacking a person individually instead of actually attacking their argument. Now, this happens all the time on social media. It happens all the time in politics. It is accepted there. I understand. I don't like it, but it is. But in a formal academic essay, if you degrade your argument to that, it's going to hurt you, because in formal academic arguments, there's no tolerance for it. They just discard everything after that, okay? So in a formal academic argument, you cannot do that and get away with it, all right? Next is the hasty generalization or the jump to conclusions. I often remember the Office Space. In Office Space, there's a character that wants to create a jump to conclusions mat as a game, and it's, anyway. This is a hasty generalization. This fallacy occurs when a conclusion is reached on the basis of too little evidence. Too little evidence. Let's say that Jim has been out every night before the quarantine, all week, and we might say, all right, Jim's been out every night. Who is she? Who's the new girlfriend? Well, we're jumping to a conclusion based on way too little evidence, because he could have been out studying. He could have picked up another part-time job. He could have just been having a lot of things to do. There's so many other things that could be there that we just jump to because of, I don't know why, okay? That's a hasty generalization or a jump to conclusion. We want to avoid that. Conspiracy theories do this all the time, okay? Oh, there were 3 tramps in Dallas on November 22nd, 1963. They must have been a hit team. Oh, okay. Where's the evidence? Kind of jumping to a conclusion here. There were tramps all over the United States that day. Gonna have to provide a little bit more than that, okay? Next is what I like to call the false dilemma, or the either-or fallacy. Salesmen do this. This is a very good salesman approach. It's where they tell you either this is going to happen or that's going to happen. Now, sometimes that's true, okay? Sometimes it is just an either-or proposition. But lots of times, there are a plethora, a wide range of other possibilities that can happen. But the salesman wants to say, okay, either you get a new tire or you're going to have a flat. Now, if your tread is down to the metal, down to the wires, then yeah, probably. But not necessarily. Because if you have a tire that's not all the way to that yet, then you're just like, I don't know. Yeah, eventually, but do I have to buy it today? This is kind of what they do. They want to present an either or, 2 alternatives when there's actually several, okay? Then there's equivocation. This fallacy occurs when the meaning of a key term changes at some point in an argument. Equivocation makes it seem as if a conclusion follows from premises when it actually does not. This is when people change the meanings of words mid-argument. Okay? Happens all the time. You have to be careful when people start doing this. That's why it's important. The more academic you go, there's actually a section that's built in the papers. If you ever have to write like a master's thesis or a doctoral dissertation where you define your terms and you have to use them with that definition. Philosophers do that a lot because you want your terms to always mean the same thing. You don't want to change it mid sentence. So that's very important. Um, an example of that from the textbook: as a human endeavor, computers are a praiseworthy and even a remarkable accomplishment, but how human can we hope to be if we rely on computers to make our decisions? The use of the word human in the first sentence refers to the entire human race. In the second sentence, human, how humane means merciful or human there means merciful or civilized. By subtly shifting the term to refer to qualities and characteristics of people as opposed to machines, the writer makes the argument seem more sound than it is. So you can actually use a word to shift it just a little bit, just to manipulate your audience. You need to avoid that. Next is one that I'm guilty of a lot. I say that. I don't do it in arguments so much. I just do it in everyday life. And that's red herring argument. A red herring argument is a fallacy that basically argues off the point. Okay? It occurs when the focus of an argument is shifted or diverted from the actual thing. Maybe people just try to do this to me a lot, and so I do it back to them. I don't know. It just kind of happens. But for example, a red herring argument. Let's say that, and you guys who know me, you know that I'm not a huge car guy. So I don't, I have a favorite brand of car, but I'm not one of those die-hard that is always going to be Chevrolet or Ford or something like that. My brand isn't either one of those. So for the sake of argument, let's just say Ford. Okay. Ford is the safest car on the road. And besides, in 2008, they refused to take bailout money for the auto industry, and they were able to survive. We should support those companies that are American-made, and they did not take the bailout money. Okay? So where'd I go wrong? What does the safest car on the road and taking bailout money and appeal to patriotism have anything to do with what car is safe? So the argument doesn't match the thesis. So that's a red herring. Okay, we're trying to manipulate the audience in such a way that basically you lose sight of what the overall argument is. Next is the tu quoque, otherwise known as the you also fallacy. This fallacy asserts that an opponent's argument has no value because the opponent does not follow his own advice. I've often referred to this as the hypocrisy fallacy. We see this in religious institutions all the time. It's that, you're going to tell me to stop smoking, yet there you are vaping or something like that. The people that just throw this stuff out and they don't realize that there's context behind things, okay? So you can't do that. Likewise, it's the church thing, okay? Then there's the appeal to doubtful authority, or the appeal to authority. Often people will attempt to strengthen an argument with references to experts or famous people, but these appeals have merit. When the person referred to as an expert in the area being discussed, they do not have merit, however, when the individual cited have no expertise on the issue. Okay? So that means one of the memes that I see a lot, and is there's quotes from Abraham Lincoln, and there's quotes from Albert Einstein that are arguing for kind of certain political points. But the problem with that, or those memes, or those quotes, is that Einstein was a physicist, okay, not a political theorist, and Abraham Lincoln was long gone before the rise of modern day politics, okay? So both of those quotes, although insightful, although interesting, are not and should not be used as sources of authority, just because they're great, big, huge historical figures. So we need to understand that it's a faulty authority, okay? Next is a misleading statistic. Although statistics can be a powerful form of factual evidence, they can and will be misrepresented and distorted in an attempt to influence the audience. I'm telling you, you can go to any number of different sources and find the exact same type of statistic, but they're all over the place. The results are all over the place because statistics, the way that they find them through polling and things, are really difficult to read because the way you ask the question has so much to do with it. Okay? So be careful of misleading statistics. Make sure it's a credible source, and also look at your variation of error. Particularly in polling data, they often don't put up the plus minus. Okay, and when they don't, it's very misleading. Okay, so pay attention to that. Then one of my favorite ones, I call it the superstition fallacy, but it's post hoc ergo propter hoc, and that's on page 531. It means literally after this, therefore because of this. And this is fallacy is known as post hoc reasoning, and what that assumes is that because two events occur close together in time, the first must be the cause of the second. Okay, so this is just assuming that one causes another one, assuming that there's some type of correlation between this. Oh, a black cat crossed my path, therefore that's why I had a flat tire. Or it could be that, you ran over a big old huge cinder block on the road and that's why you got a flat tire. Just because one occurs first does not necessitate causation. Okay? So sometimes it does. Sometimes there's a direct link. There's a causal chain there. But sometimes there's not. Okay? So you got to pay attention to that, because that's a logical fallacy. Okay? And then finally, non sequitur. Which means literally it does not follow. And this fallacy occurs when a statement does not logically follow from a previous statement. This is when you have all this disjointed arguments, lots of stuff going on. Here, I'll give you the textbook example. Disarmament weakened the United States following World War I. Disarmament also weakened the United States after the Vietnam War. For this reason, the city's efforts to limit gun sales will weaken the United States. It's kind of a cousin of some of those post hoc and also red herring stuff, isn't it? It's kind of a cousin of that, because the armament of the United States has nothing to do with how well armed the citizens are. It had to do with military strength, military might following World War I in Vietnam, not individual sales to homeowners or individual citizens. Okay, so that is a non sequitur. This is where you seemingly have ample evidence, but you really don't. You're kind of making up evidence to fit your argument. Okay, you're trying to make it fit where it doesn't. But I see this all the time. Non sequitur arguments, they're all over the place. Avoid them, please. So, and of course there's circular arguments, which you can look up as well. I think I have some links on that, and there are a couple of others that you can look up as well. But these are the ones from the text, and I will be putting up a quiz over fallacies and opening that up later today on Wednesday, and you'll have some time to take that as well, as we're working toward the argumentative evidence-based paper. Okay? So that is our lesson on fallacies. Faulty logic, avoid it. It's a good rule to just avoid it completely, all the time, in all walks of life. If you really want to annoy someone, start calling them out on their faulty logic and their fallacies. If you really want to tick off your spouse, get in the middle of an argument and then point out their logical fallacies, will not go well. But it happens, okay? So anyway, I want to thank you for tuning in today. We will get that up, and I will be chatting more with y'all later on. So everyone stay safe. Quarantine, shelter in place, social distance, whatever it is that you need to do. Stay safe. Sanitize. Wash your hands. Use some hydrogen peroxide if you have to. Don't put it in your hair, though. Hand sanitizer, whatever you need to do. Stay safe out there. Main thing. Okay? See you again later.